The 2026 Chevy Equinox is more than an SUV. It's your Sunday tailgate and your parking lot snack bar. Your lucky jersey, your chairs, and your big cooler fit perfectly in your even bigger cargo space. And when it's go time, your 11.3-inch diagonal touchscreen's got the playbook, the playlist, and the tech to stay a step ahead. It's more than an SUV. It's your Equinox. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
From sauce to dust to nuggets, Diablo dusted crispy chicken nuggets. No, they don't come in mild. That would make like 0 sense with the name. New Diablo dusted crispy chicken nuggets. Only at Taco Bell. At participating U.S. Taco Bell locations for a limited time and while supplies last.
Last night, you spent 2 hours deciding what to wear to the party. This morning, it'll take you 2 minutes to list it on Depop and make your money back. Just grab your phone, snap a few photos, and we'll take care of the rest. The sheer dress and platform heels you'll never wear again? There's a birthday girl searching for them right now. Your one and done look is about to pay for your next night out. Or at least the ride home. Your style can make you cash. Start selling on Depop, where taste recognizes taste.
Amazon presents Jeff versus Taco Truck Salsa. Whether it's Verde, Roja, or the orange one. For Jeff, trying any salsa is like playing Russian roulette with a flamethrower. Luckily, Jeff saved with Amazon and stocked up on antacids, ginger tea, and milk. Habanero? More like habanero, yes. Save the everyday with Amazon.
Kraft Mac and Cheese is better than 90s hip-hop. We'll remind you of your childhood without making you feel incredibly old. Kraft Mac and Cheese. Best thing ever.
Hey, all you heroes, hawks, crows, rooks, and inquisitors. Welcome to the Dragon Age Lorecast, where we unpack, discuss, and theorize about all the lore behind the Dragon Age series.
We are so excited to bring you this podcast. Every episode will be covering a different topic in the Dragon Age universe, from character deep dives to exalted marches and elven gods. We'll cover it all.
There will be spoilers. And always remember, swooping is bad.
Hello and welcome to the Dragon Age Lorecast, where we talk about Dragon Age and its lore. I'm one of your hosts, Austin, also known as Teacup.
And I'm your other host, Shelby or Shecup.
There you are, and we are here for another lovely patron chat, and I have our patrons here, and I'll let them introduce themselves. So the first one we have is the Crimson Knight.
Hello, I'm Steven, or the Crimson Knight.
And then we have Capricorn Tower here with us as well.
Hello, that's me, Capricorn Tower.
Hey, yeah, it's great to have you all here with us. And today we are talking about what lore tidbit, lore detail do people misunderstand. And I was talking with Shelby about this earlier, and we clarified the people can be real life people like us, or it could be people in universe. Anything else, Shelby?
No, you got it covered. You did great.
Wow. So, yeah, I guess we could just get started if anyone wants to start a lore detail or tidbit that people misunderstand.
I'm sure we all have a lot.
I guess I can go first.
Yeah.
So this is a one that I think even the writers don't understand because they keep fucking it up. But the one that I'm coming with, because of course I am, is the way gender roles work in Kunari society. And on the one level, I do understand that they weren't entirely finished fleshing out what the Kunari would be like all the way back in Origins. But I feel like by the time we get to Inquisition, they had settled on this idea that gender is secondary to your role in society. It's not that your gender sorts you into a set of roles. It's the other way around. Your role determines what your gender is, which I thought was super interesting, very original world building. I don't think very many, at least very many fantasy worlds that I have, read or interacted with have done that. But then, of course, we get to Veilguard, and then they kind of don't keep that energy, because I feel like under the Inquisition's perspective of how Kunari gender roles work, Tosh already makes sense in that framework. Their role is that of Adari, right? So there wouldn't be really a big discussion about it with their mom or anything like that. But instead they kind of took a step back from that perspective, and they were like, no, we're gonna kind of resurrect the ghost of this Kunari society from DA1, that it's actually a very repressive gender essentialist society, which I think we had evolved past by that point. So that was extremely disappointing to me. I felt like they didn't write the character of Tosh within the context of the world of Thetis. They wrote Tosh in the context of the world that we live in. And I'm not saying that there isn't utility to that. There's still a lot of people who do not understand non-binary gender identity. And, for those people, Tasha's story is, I guess, a decent primer on, hey, these people exist. But I think it cheapened the world of Thetis overall in order to kind of go back on some of those setups from previous games, if that makes sense.
That makes a ton of sense. Go ahead, Austin.
I think I really, really agree with you, and this is a big sticking point with me and Tosh, because I feel like they could have had an equally, and if not even more, powerful story had they stuck with the roles that Kunari assigned to people, and really leaned into kind of the non-binary thing of Tosh doesn't feel that they fit any of those roles, and they feel that they can decide if they want to be this role or this role. That would be super controversial to the Kunari. That would be something that has to be discussed. And it's instead a throwaway line where Tasha's mom says, oh, someone who doesn't identify as their gender assigned at birth, they're this. Is that what you are? And Tasha's like, no, that's not what I am. When instead, if they had leaned more into that, I feel like they would have gotten the exact same point that across, but then it wouldn't have been. I think named representation is really important, but then basically to the grifters, we could be like, they didn't. Tosh, yeah, there's overtones, but you're injecting that yourself into there. You don't have to read it that way if you don't want to, because it's within the Kunari society. It's within the lore and the established place of Thetis, and I think that that's really important, and I think that would have led to deeper conversation about it. And I get frustrated with that in Tasha's story, that they're non-binary, and then at the end we have to force them into a binary on, are they going to be Kunari or are they going to be Ravani?
Yeah, it is disappointing. But I also think, this isn't just a Veilguard problem. They have done this similar thing in almost all of the games. I think about Origins, where, okay, if you play as a female Grey Warden, they're like, well, women have always been part of the Grey Wardens. And then the first time you go to Orzammar, they're like, oh my God, a Warden who's a woman? Holy cow. And then in Inquisition, it's the same thing where, like, the Inquisition leader, you're a woman. And even it's Cassandra who's like, the Inquisition leader is a woman. Oh my God. And I'm like, what the hell? You're the right hand of the divine, the female pope. So it's like, it's so frustrating because, like, the world is so rich with lore. And then it's just like, to me, the way I interpret it is like, this is the bias of the writers, like, coming through and wanting to say, like, hey, look at this awesome world we've built. Like, we don't have to deal with the same things we deal with in this world in terms of misogyny, but it's like, you forgot that your bias that you have has accidentally seeped into the writing and you haven't noticed it.
Well, and like, it's really noticeable because one big thing about this is that one of the many critiques that people have about the Elder Scrolls is that for a lot of the games, and this is like true across RPG and video games, if you played as a woman, your stats were worse. Like, you had less strength, you had less starting strength and less starting like endurance and everything, and then like your social stats got a boost.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That is so wild to me.
D&D used to be like that. But in Skyrim they got rid of it. And like, it's still in there. Like, most of the women that you meet in Skyrim are, your stereotypical gender assignment, but like, no one comments on a woman being a dragonborn. And it's just a point of like, yeah, there's still this like established role, but no one comments on it. So it's like, it's that way. It's like, okay, yeah, this is a little like not what everyone else is doing, but no one cares, which is what they established kind of like Thetis as. I mean, if you play as a human noble, your mom was a warrior, like, and a city elf origin, your mom was also a warrior.
True.
Like,
yeah, they're just, the real world gender politics are seeping into the fantasy world gender politics. And I don't think it would have been wrong for them to establish early on that there is class-based differences between genders across different groups. Like, to me, it checks out that the Orzammar dwarves would be surprised at a female warden, because they do seem like a very strict traditionalist society. Like, they have, like, they call it polyamory, but the way that they display it in game, it's almost always polygamy, where it's just one man with multiple wives or concubines. So,
well, they also like only prioritize women for their wombs. So, like, because of their fertility crisis. So, like, yeah, there's some stuff there.
They could have just, written this in a lot earlier and established these things, and maybe they weren't the same across all of the different lineages, but were specific to different groups. But, I also want to give some grace to the fact that it's hard to maintain a consistent lore across multiple games and multiple writers. So, I have my disappointments, but they still did pretty well considering.
Yeah, I mean, disclaimer for the episode, like, these are nitpicks, like, we're not saying that, like, oh, you deserve to be fired for that. No, like, these are just our personal problems that we have. Like, it's okay. Don't take it personally. Nobody light a bonfire. Nobody get a pitchfork in my name. Like, we're okay.
And I do think that there was a little bit of a thing of like, it was, let's put a trans character into Dragon Age, even though we've already had several trans characters in Dragon Age. And like, let's put a main companion in there, but they were writing them as like, okay, let's put someone who's trans as a companion versus like, okay, how does this fit into, how can we do this but make it Thetis?
Yeah. And I think they wanted the coming out story too, like not somebody who was established, which, like, again, I get it. I think that's perfectly fine and respectable. I just wished that they had done it in like more of the lore setting, like Nick was saying. So, but I think we kind of talked about this one a lot. So, Steven, do you want to go next?
Yeah. I'm not sure if this is so much as of a misunderstanding as it is an overestimation of one's uh, willpower, I guess I could say. But for me, it's corrupting ability of the oh, I'm blanking on what it is. Hold on. The Anvil of the Void, because like sure, it could be an easy choice to make when you're sitting behind a screen. But like, if we were actually in that situation, like, how many of us would be able to say, "No, this is wrong. Can't use this." Uh, versus how many would be, "We need as much help as we can get in this war." And Bronca probably didn't go searching for it, planning on sacrificing her entire uh, people to get to it, and but eventually it just drove her mad. And it's like you got to wonder how many people would actually be able to resist that temptation.
Mm. I think that's a great point. One that I've not ever thought of. But I think also, you have to think about like she spent so long down there. Like you have to think about the isolation and how that also will drive you crazy. And that combined with the anvil's power, I think, is a really deadly combination that they do a really good job of illustrating in her. But yeah, I agree with you. If you're facing a blight, why wouldn't you choose to use it? Like, if it's the end of the world, yeah, okay, let's use everything in our arsenal. So I get that argument for sure.
It really reminds me of like, there's the old adage of like the road or thing, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Mm,
You never like think that you'll be in that position and that you would do, oh, I would never do that until you're in that situation and you
yeah.
say, it's like I never say, oh, I'd never kill someone in self-defense. I don't know. I don't know what I would do. I
Well,
mean,
maybe
I
let's
I
not
know what I
say
would,
that on the podcast.
but whatever. Like those are the points of like you
Yeah.
never know what you're gonna do in that moment until you're faced with it. And I think that like the Anvil of the Void serves this perfect thing of like what this temptation that gets at. And if you've ever listened to me on any Star Wars podcast, I've talked about this exact thing before. There's a great little interview that's with Sam Witwer, Freddie Prinze Jr., and Taylor Gray, who, if you don't know, Taylor Gray voices Ezra in Rebels, and Freddie Prinze Jr. voices Kanan. And then obviously Sam Witwer is the voice of Maul. And Dave Filoni actually had Taylor Gray not watch anything about Star Wars ever before he started voicing this because he wanted his acting to be like someone learning about the Force for the first time. And so they would do this scene where Maul would say something like, "Oh, we want you to use your power. Why aren't you using your power to protect your friends?" And Filoni would pause the like recording of the lines, and Taylor would look at Freddie Prinze Jr. and be like, "Well, that sounds right. Like, why wouldn't I do that?" And Freddie Prinze Jr. is like, "No, that's the trap. The trap is that the dark side makes you think that it's right. It makes you think it's what you're supposed to do." When it's not. And I think that's the Anvil of the Void. The Anvil of the Void presents this easy way out. It presents this moment where we can get a lot of power. And I do think that the moral choice is to destroy the Anvil of the Void. However, when tempted with that, when you are facing annihilation, and I think depending on if you really want to get into the role play, I think it depends on what kind of warden you are. If you are a dwarven noble and you are faced with this, I think it's a much harder choice than you see like You've seen, even in your noble status, the decline of Orzammar, and that, it doesn't really matter how easier the blights are getting, because Orzammar is still losing ground, regardless on if the blights get defeated or not. And so it's kind of that same trap that the One Ring poses to Boromir of like, we can save your people. You're the ones who are holding the line between darkness, and like, who is someone else to decide what you can and cannot do? That was a lot. I did not realize I had so much to say.
You just brought in all the fantasy universes there at the end.
I did.
Yeah, I do think, to just add a little bit onto this, I feel like it's easy for us to moralize that decision in retrospect. As people who have played the games multiple times, I do wonder about someone who has literally never played the games before, how they might feel a little bit differently. But I also wonder if that decision would make more impact in a game like the Veilguard, where the stakes are so high and it is posited literally as, this is the end of the world. What are you going to do? So I do think that would be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, I think now is probably a good time for our mid-break, Austin.
All right. Yeah, let's do it.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
I've got this nefarious plan to go around to each of them and secretly tell them all the nasty things you said. That way they'll mutiny and I shall become the group leader.
You know, we have more comfortable rooms and basically infinite space, so why
does the trained assassin prefer a quiet, unassuming spot with good choke points?
Guess you just answered that question.
Besides, I'm closer to the coffee.
Just wondering if the feathered pauldrons are an essential part of the moody rebel mage persona.
What are you talking about?
I'm working on an epic poem about a hopelessly romantic apostate, waging an epic struggle against forces he can't possibly defeat.
What do you mean, can't possibly defeat?
Well, it's not a good story unless the hero dies.
Well, welcome to the middle of the show. We take time to thank our patrons, like our patrons we have here. Thank you so much to all our patrons who support us. Thank you to our first patrons, Genesis and Lisa M. If you'd like to join us, you can do so at patreon.com/DALorecast. Also come and leave us reviews or comments on Spotify. If you leave us a 5-star review or a comment with nice words, we will read it out on a future episode of the show. I don't have one to read today, so if you haven't gotten into your comments for that, definitely do so. If you've got a thing you think people misunderstand, please let us know. Another great place to do that would be our Discord server. You can come onto the Cups Podcasting More Discord server, where we talk about all things Dragon Age and all things that have to do with the podcast and our other show, the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. And so you can come and hang out there. And I think that's all I have for the middle of the show, Shelby.
All right, quick and easy. Let's get back into it.
There's no one like you, and there never will be.
From the producer of Bohemian Rhapsody, there are many legends, but there is only one. Michael, rated PG-13, in theaters April 24.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
My people have heard legends of the Grey Warden's strength and skill, though I suppose not every legend is true.
That's really helpful. What are you, the elven god of sarcasm?
Lies, treachery, and rebellion, depending upon the story. And how could I help? I do not have my ritual dagger. I cannot access my network of mirrors to travel from the lighthouse to anywhere in the world. All I can offer is what I know.
Helpful advice from the elven god of, and I am quoting you here, lies, treachery, and rebellion.
Depending on the story.
You fear barbarians will swoop down upon you.
Yes, swooping is bad.
I think I'll go next.
Okay.
So I have a couple, but I'm going to stick with this one. Mine is that the Veil Guard does not disprove the existence of the Maker.
I knew you were going to do this.
I just really have to say this because of, I don't know, I feel very strongly about it. And I don't know why. No, that's not true. I do know why. I'm just trying to say it on podcast. But the my thing about like the Veil Guard doesn't disprove the existence of the Maker comes back to something Shelby said on an episode when we were talking about this. If anything, the Veil Guard proves the Chantry has the most right. Like the things they say in the Chant of Light are mostly true. Now there is stuff about the Elven gods and the Evanuris and all of that stuff, but I think that what people are missing in here is that the Evanuris were never gods to begin with. Like, and that is the real taker here. And so I argue then that like if the Evanuris were never gods and they're the first elves that become mortal, where do they get this concept of divinity from? Where do they get this concept of like something to be worshipped other than like people actually worshiping and venerating them? Sure, but those concepts don't come out of nowhere. And I think that there is a point of like, I think there's a reason the Veil Guard doesn't say, oh, Solus is the one who whispered to Andraste. Oh, like there's a reason the Veil Guard doesn't say that. Because it doesn't want to completely write off the Andrastian story and the Andrastian experience. And I think the writers intentionally don't want to do that. And I think that that's a big misunderstanding. And I think a huge criticism that the Veil Guard gets is that it erases so much established lore. I don't really think it does that much. I think it lazily pieces together a lot of big lore things in a way that maybe makes sense. But I think that with the Veil Guard and what it establishes is an argument actually for the Maker, is an argument that the reason that all this goes south is because it is not what the creator of the universe intended for these spirits. It was not intended for them to take mortal flesh bodies and do all of this instead. And like, honestly, if I was the Maker and created things and I looked at what Elgranon and Gillenane were doing, I'd turn from the world too.
Very fair. I also think, we do criticize the Veil Guard a lot on this podcast, and there are great reasons to criticize it. But at the same time, I do think that this is one aspect where it succeeds, where it does have almost, I'm going to say, the beauty of the Veil Guard is that you can, on the surface, take it and say, oh my God, well, this disproves everything the Chantry says. But then if you take it a little deeper and you're like, well, wait a minute, what about this and that and this other thing? It's like, well, on the surface, yeah, it does prove the Chantry wrong about some things. But then when you think about it on a deeper level, it's like, well, the Chantry is also right about some of this other stuff. And so I think the Veil Guard does a really good job of balancing that. And we joke that it does the whole, oh, well, the ancient elves are to blame for everything trick. But it really doesn't do that. It really does a good job of saying like, no, the Chantry is right about a lot of things. It's also wrong about some stuff. The elves are wrong about a lot of stuff, but they're also right about a lot of stuff. The dwarves are right about some stuff too. And I think it actually does a pretty fair representation of like giving each section its due, except for the Qunari, unfortunately.
Yeah, ironically, I feel like the group that is the most wrong by the Veil Guard are the Dalish.
Yeah, I mean, the Dalish do. They just like have spent their entire existence like not their entire existence, but their entire modern existence, like being shuffled around the woods and then like fighting for their cultural representation to then just be told, hey, actually, yeah, you did have it wrong this whole time. Sorry, you're worshiping ancient slavers. Like,
From a meta perspective, it is super yikes.
Yeah.
What they did to the Dalish.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, oh boy. But I agree that the Veilguard really doesn't paper over Andrastianism at all, in my opinion. Like, I definitely saw that critique originally, but when I really look at it, I'm like, no, not really. There's still a lot of unanswered questions. Like, where the heck do the humans come from? It didn't even confirm Kunari being like dragon elves. It just confirmed that they have some sort of dragon ancestry. Like, there's still so much that is not explained by the end of the Veilguard, which I think is fine. And so I definitely agree with that take.
Was that all for you, Austin?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I have other ones if we want to.
Well, I mean, I haven't gone yet, so
Yeah.
I was also going to talk about the Chantry. I think that while the Chantry is definitely, obviously, clearly, you cannot argue otherwise, it is inspired by Christianity. I think that the fandom a lot of times misinterprets it as the Chantry is Christianity. And to me, those are two different things because, like, yeah, the church has done abhorrent things in the world. Like, well, some people are. Nobody on this podcast is denying that. But, like, it's not, you can't take your, like, religious trauma and your biases against religion into a video game and, like, put that on the in-universe religion and say, like, oh, well, because you are a gender-bent version of Catholicism, then that means you must have done all of the other things that the church in our world has done too. And I see that all the time, like, especially on Reddit and Twitter. And it's just, like, exhausting to me because it's like, we do have absolute basis for, you know, some of the horrible things the Chantry has done, like the exalted march against the Dales. Yes, that's horrific. But some of the other exalted marches, like to Teventer against the Kunari, like, these are defensive wars that they have waged. These are not quite self-defense, maybe with the Kunari of fighting back against their borders. And I just don't feel like it's comparable to, like, you know, some of the things that the church has done in our world. And I see it compared very frequently. And so I just feel like it's different. And yeah, we can take inspiration, but it's not a one-to-one comparison.
Also, I'm going to say this just for that. This is the first time I've probably ever said this. The Divine has nowhere near the amount of authority that the Pope does.
Also,
when it comes to doctrine and actual political power.
The Divines have been nowhere near as bad as the Popes.
Correct.
Like, y'all, come on. Nowhere near. And I know we talked about a good Divine on the episode that came out this week. Like, I know there have been some bad ones. Don't get me wrong. But the Divines that we know about that are bad, like, pale in comparison to the worst popes.
Yeah. I also think that, like, this is a big thing in there of, like, especially if we take in-universe examples, we don't really get a lot of, like, in-universe examples of, like, the Chantry as an institution producing homophobic and, like, heterosexist doctrine.
True.
Other than, like, they don't really, like, think, and they don't think men, like, lesser in their, like, doctrine, maybe a little bit, but it's just that, like, they follow an example, like Andraste was a woman, so the leadership of this religion is women, which I think is, like, it's similar, but it's a little different. But I really think, like, the places we get homophobia in are from nobility concerned about their legacy, and then the Kunari concerned about the role in which you play. and
Yeah.
changing the role that you're supposed to serve. And so I see those as more cultural rather than strictly religious. The chantry itself has really shown very little, if not no, evidence that it produces any kind of like homophobic doctrine.
Well,
Yeah,
let's
I
maybe
agree.
say the Orlesian chantry. I think the imperial chantry probably does.
Well, I think, yeah, I think that's true in the sense that I think the imperial chantry has took the sort of the cult of Andraste, the myth of Andraste, and adapted it to its own patriarchal standards. So the religion itself, I would agree that chantry or Androstianism is not here to say, no, you can't have sex with the same gender person. But I think Tevinter specifically is a patriarchal in the sense of like almost Roman, where it's like women sec, we only like men. You're allowed to have gay sex, but only these like very specific standards. And yeah, it's very Rome in that sense.
Yeah.
If you can be gay if you're a top.
Exactly.
Let's not get into the nitty gritty details of it, please. I beg. But no, I just think so many people shit on the chantry, and like that's cool. I'm totally down with that. Please don't get me wrong. Like, I am not here to be a chantry simp, but I just feel like Dragon Age would feel like any other fantasy setting without the chantry. I think the chantry and Androstianism is really one of the major things, if not the thing, that sets it apart and makes it unique.
For sure. I definitely agree with that.
All right, I know Austin has another one.
Oh, yeah, we can do this. This one I'm just gonna do because this one is an in-universe thing that I think that the actual in-universe populace misunderstands, and this own faction even misunderstands. And it comes from a quote from The Calling, where Genevieve is like, we have to stop the blight. Our duty is to stop the blight. Our duty is to end the blight, to do all of these things. And then I can't remember which warden it is, comes back at her and says, no, our duty is to protect Thetis from the blight. And I think both the wardens and the people of Thetis misunderstand and forget that the warden's duty is to protect Thetis from the blight, not end the blight. Hence their name as a warden, which is like a guardian, a protector, not an offensive movement.
I just have to tell the crowd, when we were reading this book for the podcast, Austin was bitching so hard about this very thing for like weeks, maybe not weeks, 1 week leading up to the recording. Like, you could not let it go. And he sits there proudly like, yeah, he did.
He did. I'm right. They're right.
You are right. I'm not arguing that you're wrong. I'm also just saying you were on a soapbox. You're on the warpath.
Yeah, but that's my big other thing that they misunderstand in universe, both the wardens and the Thetis populace.
Very fair. All right, Nick or Steven, do y'all have others?
Well, I would just like to make a shout out to the biggest misunderstanding in universe. Magic was made to serve man and not rule over him.
Yes,
and they
so true.
and they used it to, throw mages in prisons, basically.
Well, and then Tevinter misunderstands it again by making it magic is ruling everything.
Yeah. Magic is made to serve man, not rule over man, or humankind or whatever, in the point of, oh, that means we can make mages slaves. Yeah, I mean, it's not an unrealistic jump, but it is a pretty big jump.
Yeah, it's not unrealistic at all. We would totally do that. Like, if magic existed in America and capitalism, like, come on. Come on. We would be just like Teventer. We'd be worse. Come on.
Yeah, we'd have corporate meetings about leveraging mages.
This does bring us back to me thinking that the Raveni have the most healthy relationship with magic overall. Like, to them, the seers are community organizers, right? Like, they're the center of a community. They're using their gifts to help their culture. It's sort of similar with the Avar and their shamans. So, like, we have examples of where people, whether they're Andrastian or not, end up following that example, but in strictly Chantry ruled lands, they've just completely muffed it up and gotten it wrong.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that even in that point of like the Dalish are also that, because their mages serves as their keepers, the ones who learn as much lore and are guardians of their culture and everything about that. Literally, the keeper of their clan is a mage. And then you have your first and second, and then God forbid you're the third mage born in a clan. I don't even know what happens to you.
You get sent to another clan who doesn't have a mage. But I also think with the Dalish, at least, it's a little different because I think so much of the role of the keeper is to like keep the knowledge hidden almost of magic so that you don't get persecuted by the humans, which fair, but also it's like that makes it so much more toxic, and situations like what happens with Meryl arises, and it just becomes unhealthy.
R.I.P. Keeper Marathari.
Yeah. I mean, she kind of messed up.
She did.
So, anyway. All right. Any other thoughts before we kind of wrap it up for the evening?
One last thought, that we don't really meet like a good keeper until Inquisition. Because before that, we meet Dathrian,
The OG Solus.
OG Solus, and Marathari. Like, those are the keepers we interact with.
It would have been nice to get some additional lore that bridges where the Dalish are at in Inquisition to the Veil Guard, where we have the Veil Jumpers, and they embrace magic in a way that I don't think is borne out by the Dalish attitude towards magic. So that's just an area that I think would have been cool to learn more about. Like, how did they form the Veil Jumpers originally, and like what was their thinking there? Because they would have had to have, I think, broken away from Dalish tradition in order to kind of pursue that kind of organization.
Right. Because, and like, this is one big thing that gets me there with that, is that Strife, when you interact with him, he's already like, yeah, our gods were terrible. Like, it's not a surprise that when they say, oh, we let our gods out, and he's like, oh yeah, and they're monsters. So there had to have been this moment where either he interacts with Solus or he interacts in some way where they're like, okay, no, maybe like we're wrong.
Well, Strife and Irulan meet Solus and know about him in the Missing. So they know for sure. But how that got communicated to like the rest of the Dalish clans and the Veil Jumpers, that's my question.
And I think that kind of weaves back into the conversation about the Maker not being disproved. It would have been an interesting route to take with, say, Belar's story, where instead of kind of her struggle to whether or not to preserve the Arlathan, or like the old Arlathan way of doing things, maybe it could have been more of like an exploratory thing of like, what existed before the Elven gods? Like, we could have had that sort of like, maybe there was a concept of divinity that predates the Evanuris.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. All right, Austin, I think it's time for us to wrap it up.
All right, well, I'll let you all do a wrap up and plug anything you got going on. Let people know where to find you, and we'll start in reverse order. So we'll start with Capricorn Tower.
That's me, Capricorn Tower, or Nick. I just hang out on the Discord.
And then we have the Crimson Knight.
Hey, I'm Steven with Crimson Knight, and I'm just on Discord.
All right. Well, thank you both for being here. Awesome talk, as always. Love talking about Dragon Age lore. Thank you all for listening to the Dragon Age Lorecast. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Dragon Age Lorecast. If you have any lore questions, topics to cover, or side character suggestions, join the Cups Podcasting and More Discord server. It's the best place on the internet.
You can also support the podcast financially and ensure its continuation by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/DALorecast. If you enjoyed the show or learned something new today, please subscribe, leave us a review, rating, or comment, or join our Patreon.
The Dragon Age Lorecast is part of the Robots Radio Podcasting Network. If you enjoyed our intro or outro music, give a big shout out to Pipeman Studios. Until next time, look to the sky. The dawn will come.
Spring isn't just about clearing clutter, it's about changing the air. Pura makes it easy to refresh your space, your mindset, and how your home feels with transportive fragrances inspired by a terrace in Santorini, a French lavender field, and more. Get started with a free Pura Plus diffuser when you subscribe to 2 cents monthly for a year. Shop now at Pura.com.
When a wasteland detective and a vault girl cross paths, no criminal is safe.
You're both under arrest.
Don't move a muscle if you know what's good for you.
Based in Bethesda's Fallout series, follow Walter and Bunny as they traverse the Texas Commonwealth and New Vegas, busting big crime rings.
We'll need all we can to expand into Vegas territory.
And surviving anything the wasteland can throw at them.
It's him! It's the Mothman!
Featuring a series of nail-biting narratives and guest stars from across the Fallout community. It's anybody's guess what thrilling case is up next.
War never changes, does it, Bunny?
No, it certainly does not.
True Vault Escapades, a Fallout audio drama. Available anywhere you get podcasts.